Hello, welcome to the Red Sauce Podcast with Papa Joe, where we talk about anything and everything Italian-American. I'm your host, Papa Joe Il Capovinaio, or the head winemaker, also known as the Godfather who never wears shorts. And I'm here with my daughters, Katie.
Hi.
The Piazza's front-end manager, who's a former student of the Italian language and culture, and Beth, our head cook. And gangster movie aficionado, and also pit nut, but that's a different story.
College Colors Friday, hail to Pit.
Yeah. So we're going to have new episodes bi-weekly, and they should be starting. Well, actually, they've already started, if you're watching this. Never mind me. But anyway, here we are, and today we're going to do Red Sauce Part 2. Again, since we are the Red Sauce Podcast, I think we have to cover it till we beat the living shit out of it, and that's what we're planning to do today. So anyway, we'll start with our Italian culture and fact expert, Katie, and she'll lead with facts, and Beth and I will chime in with stupid-ass opinions.
Bullshit.
Exactly.
All right, so last time we talked a little bit about how tomato sauce goes back to the times of the Spanish conquistadors, but they didn't mix it with macaroni or pasta until significantly later. Well, we're going to talk a little bit today about that mixture of pasta, macaroni, and sauce. And we're going to start with some regional differences. Let's start with Rome, because that's my favorite city, and that's like the center of all of this. And you know what?
I like Sersale myself, but that's a different story.
Well, yeah. I didn't spend enough time in Sersale. I spent, 8 weeks in Rome, so
yeah,
I got a little bit more attached to that.
I think probably in about 30 minutes you'd get all of Sersale, but that's... Again.
Probably. Probably, and I still don't feel like I saw enough of Rome when I was there, but, okay. That's what more trips are for, so we're going to start with Roman dishes, mainly arrabbiata and amatriciana. You guys know what both of those are? Dad, you made a matriciana a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, so I know what that is now.
What was the first one?
Arrabbiata.
Okay, I don't know what that is.
So, arrabbiata, we'll start there.
I'm Calabrese, though, that's why.
It's said to have been created as a Roman trattoria as a spicy, meatless alternative to a matriciana, which, again, we'll get into later. It typically contains tomatoes, olive oil, garlic, chili peppers or crushed red pepper, and pecorino cheese. And arrabbiata means angry, and that's where it gets its name, because it's spicy, it's angry. So I don't really have a lot to say about that one in particular, just because that's a more recent addition to the Roman dishes. But I feel like, Beth, you would love an arrabbiata. Like, you and Dad both love your chili peppers, so I feel like that would be a big thing.
I do love chili peppers until I eat a whole one instead of putting it in my macaroni.
Oh, yes. Should we talk about that?
Should we go that route?
Let's go ahead.
We have to go that route.
You just said you were going to talk about Rome instead of Calabria, but we'll break off real quick.
Go ahead, Bethy. So, from your perspective.
When Katie was studying in Rome, when she was done, me and my parents went to pick her up. That's what we call it. So we got to go around Rome for a couple days. We went to the Amalfi Coast. We went to Napoli. And then we went south to Sersale, where our his grandfather's from. And we still have a bunch of family members there, cousins, distant cousins, but they're cousins nonetheless. And we have a cousin named Mario, and he took us in completely. He was driving us around, showing us where our great-grandfather grew up. He showed us the olive groves, all this stuff. So I think it was the first night we were there, wasn't it?
It was the first afternoon. They opened a restaurant just for us. It was closed in the middle of the day, but they opened this restaurant in the mountains just for us.
Small fucking hole in the wall, just like this, tiny. I think an 8-year-old was waiting on us, but that happens here too.
Yeah. It's cultural.
Yeah. So, we sit down, and they bring out, the first course, and if you know anything about Italians, they tend to eat all day long. One meal can be 7 courses, 8 courses, whatever.
Typically, the Italian meal, though, like they'll eat smaller. Like, breakfast is just like pastries.
Yeah.
Lunch is huge. Lunch is multi-course.
Right.
Dinner is usually at 8 or 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock, and it's a lighter dish or a lighter meal than what your afternoon meal is. The big meal is the afternoon meal.
What did we start with? I can't even remember.
I believe meat and cheese.
Okay, probably.
Yeah.
And then we start going through the courses, and they bring out the macaroni. And obviously I was very excited to try it, see how close it was to what we make at home. By the way, it was almost exact.
We'll talk a little bit about that later too.
I didn't taste any fucking garlic in there either.
Nope.
So they get this chili pepper, and it's on a plate by itself. Just a straight up chili pepper with a knife.
Tiny little decorative plate.
And everybody starts cutting a piece off and passing the plate. So I'm like...
It was a Calabrese chili pepper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, cool. So I didn't notice what they were doing with it.
Dad got his first.
Yeah. My dad got his first. He put his in his macaroni. I didn't see that happen.
That's what all of them did.
They hand me the plate. I take a chunk off and pop it right in my mouth. Pass the plate on.
I was like, you don't want to do that.
And I'm like, no, you did not say that.
Yes, I did.
No, you did not.
I said, look at Dad, he's
That
crying.
didn't happen.
It totally
It
happened.
was too late. You didn't warn me.
I'm sorry.
Quit trying to be a saint down there.
Okay.
Anyway,
I think she said you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
that's probably what she said.
Yeah.
But she said, you don't want to do that. And then I stuck it in my mouth anyway. Anyway, we don't need to fight on this podcast
It's
yet.
been 9 years.
Yeah.
The details are a little fuzzy.
Yeah, they're fuzzier to you than me. I remember it like it was yesterday. Anyway, I put the chili pepper in my mouth. And I passed the plate, and my face must have turned bright red. I start crying, not like actively crying, but my eyes watering like crazy. And I looked at my dad, and I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, I know. And he's like shaking his head. He put his in his macaroni, and it was that hot. I
He
ate
mixed it. No, he just mixed it in, then took it back out
Yeah,
and ate it.
that's what I'm saying.
None of the
And
cousins pulled it back out to eat it. They pulled it out and put it on the side of the plate.
I ate the fucking thing.
You ate the fucking pepper.
So I'm taking everybody's wine, everybody's water. I'm eating bread. I'm shoving it in my mouth as fast as I can.
Carmela took your plate away from you.
Our cousin came and took my plate of macaroni away. I was like, no, I need that.
She thought it was too hot for you.
Let me tell the fucking story. God damn.
This is called dialogue, Beth.
This is bullshit. So she comes over and takes my plate. And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you I need that. And I'm like, no, give it back, give it back. And she went to get me a new one because she thought it was too hot with it mixed in. And I thought I was going to pass away at that table.
The only one who, I was laughing too hard to explain to them what had happened. I apologize
Yeah,
for
but
that.
they spoke so much dialect you couldn't have told them anyway, probably.
Probably not. But Mario figured it out, and he's laughing as he hands you glass after glass of wine and water.
I was
and,
chugging
he
wine.
figured it out.
I couldn't even tell if I was drunk because my mouth was so hot. Anyway, that's my story.
Yeah, so you do like the chili peppers, just not straight in your mouth.
Correct.
Yes. All right, let me
Now
talk
that I
a
know
little
what to
bit.
do with them.
Let me talk a little bit
Well,
about.
but since we're on that story, you
Okay.
got to tell what happened when Deb saw the meat course.
Oh yeah, okay.
Go ahead, I'll let you tell it.
Because I keep cutting in anyway.
Yeah, might as well.
No, so my mom is always used to Italian American food, where it's spaghetti and meatballs. Our mom, your wife, it's spaghetti and meatballs all served together. In Italy, they don't really do that as much. They do a little bit in the South, where they'll throw like meatballs or sopressata or whatever in their pasta al forno, their baked macaroni, whatever. But Mom didn't know that after the pasta course was the meat and potatoes main dish, the secondi, because the primi is the macaroni, and then the next one is secondi, which is your meat dish, usually with potatoes or vegetables, whatever. Mom didn't know that, and she stuffed her face with the macaroni. And then as soon as Dad always says it best, as soon as she saw that, her eyes just went super wide, oh
They
God,
were bigger than her head.
we have to keep eating. And that was the one thing too. That was the one thing I kept saying to you guys. You're like, I'm so full. I'm like, keep eating. You can't insult these people.
Yeah.
Keep eating. Just stuff yourself till you're about to throw up.
Well, so lesson learned.
Yeah.
Don't eat too much in the first course.
Right.
Yeah.
Because there's 9
Don't
more
eat,
coming,
Don't eat all the carbs.
and you'll insult the Calabrese.
Yeah. Yep.
And speaking of that, we just started our 3-course presso
Presso fiso.
presso fiso lunch. It's only 3 courses, so you can handle it. But from 11 to 3 every day, come in here for a 3-course dinner. If you have a long lunch, if you have a business meeting, if you have a good friend that you want to bring in for some really good food, come on in. Our first course will be an appetizer or a salad or an in-season soup. Second course is either a pizza or pasta. And the third course is a dessert. And we give you a free soft drink, and if you want wine or beer, it's a little bit extra. But anyway, this is something you can't miss. This is really going to be good. We're going to fill you, but we're not going to fill you too much.
Not like our Calabrese cousins. Not to that extent.
Yeah, you'll be able to go back to work unless you decide to have 3-4 glasses of wine with it. And I could understand that.
When Beth and I were little, Dad, I don't know if you knew this. We used to, when we'd go to Grandma's and she'd, make you eat 3-4 plates of macaroni, Beth and I would have to lay on the living room floor after this because we couldn't sit upright because we were so stuffed. We called it laying flat.
Yeah.
She'd look at me at the table, go, "Do you need to lay flat?" And I'm like, "Yes, I need to lay flat. Do you?" "Yes." So we still use that term every once in a while. We'll be so stuffed from something. Beth will be like, "Man, I gotta lay flat."
Now I do that to them here.
And now you do that to them here. Well, that's the thing. Every time we have customers come in and if I see them finish a plate of macaroni, I get nervous. Do you?
No.
I get nervous because I'm like, oh my God, I didn't feed them enough. If they can finish it, I didn't feed them enough.
Carl was in here the other day. Our friend Carl DePerna. Shout out, Carl. Love
Carl,
you.
nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Sorry.
Carl came in the other day, and they were just coming in to pay off some gambling debt. Anyway.
Carl and Leonetta, the namesake of the pizza.
Exactly. So they came in, and they were just hanging out for a little bit, and then I made a pizza, and I let them have a piece, and then they were like, fuck it, we're just going to eat dinner with you guys. So I made Carl, we have pasta carbonara as our macaroni special this week. And he was like, how is it? I was like, I think it's pretty good, but I made it, so I'm biased. So he goes, that's what I'm going to have. So he's coming in, we're watching the Yankee game, he keeps coming in and coming back out and eating a little more. And finally he comes in, he goes, damn it, Elizabeth. He calls me Elizabeth. Damn it, Elizabeth. I was going to save half of that for lunch tomorrow, but it was so freaking good. And I'm like, sorry,
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Carl doesn't drop F-bombs.
So, no, he doesn't. He said freaking.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, I was going to have that for lunch tomorrow, but I just had to eat the whole thing. Good job. And so he was like, I'm so full. I can't even walk. But that's what we do. I can't remember the last time we got a complaint that the portion sizes were too small.
Have we ever?
Early on, we got one. I can't remember what it was about. But
You're always going to get one. That's
yeah,
just the way it
whatever.
is, yeah.
Who gives a shit?
Hey, if they had the baked macaroni, that portion size is not too small.
We haven't had any complaints lately, even with this fucking guy over here.
Even with Dad's rants
Yeah.
about everything and
Calling out comedians.
yeah. All right, let's switch tracks to the other Roman dish I want to talk about, and that's amatriciana. So this is composed mainly of tomatoes, and instead of like our red sauce is made with a roast, this one's made with guanciale. So it's very much like red sauce carbonara. I feel like that's a safe bet to say, but it has tomatoes, guanciale, and pecorino. So it was originally named Griscia after the village of Grisciano when it was, and this is before the introduction of tomatoes. This dish goes back like probably 1,000 years. It was pasta tossed with guanciale and pecorino, and now they call it amatriciana bianca, but this is the dish in its original form. And it was renamed amatriciana, and there's a little bit of debate about this, whether it's a Roman dish or if it's from Amatrice, which is a town in Lazio about 2 hours today outside of Rome. That's where they finally added the tomatoes to the Griscia. So the first written recipe was by Francesco Leonardi in 1816, and then he served it in the court of Pope Pius VII. And the idea is that, that, like I said, there's a little bit of controversy over where it came from, whether it's Amatrice or if it's actually a Roman dish. But they think that traveling merchants brought it with them, like, marinara or whatever, because it's somewhat shelf stable. It's typically made from pomodori pelati, like peeled tomatoes or San Marzano tomatoes. Amatrice cheese, pecorino, is a little bit different than pecorino romano. It's not quite as strong from what I've gotten. It's not quite as salty. So there's a little bit of difference there. It's always local guanciale, a splash of wine, olive oil, and occasionally they'll put chili peppers in it. But that's not...
Do they put it in it or do they just eat it?
I don't know. In Amatrice, they serve it exclusively with spaghetti, although the Romans prefer bucatini, vermicelli, or rigatoni.
So do I.
Bucatini, yeah, that's
I love bucatini.
Yeah, that's between that or it's almost always when you make carbonara, you make it with bucatini. This week you did linguine because that's what we had on hand.
For anybody that doesn't know, bucatini is like spaghetti, but it's got a hole in it.
Yeah,
It's still pretty thin. It's a little bit wider than spaghetti, but it has a hole the whole way through it. It's not quite as big as long ziti, which is ziti, but it's this long and it's
Huge.
almost impossible to eat, but it's so good.
Oh, it is good.
It's
I
so
love
hard
that.
to eat.
You
now.
you can't eat
You
it
can't twirl
cleanly.
it.
Let's put it that
You
way.
can't twirl it like spaghetti.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have to twirl it, and you can't cut it because it makes it taste different.
Yeah,
Ask
and
Aunt
you-
Mary.
The only way you can do it is you can put the fork in about 3 times, put as much of it in your mouth as you can get, and slurp the rest in.
Did
The
you,
only way.
when you were a kid, did your Aunt Mary ever tell you couldn't cut your macaroni?
Yeah.
Because Grandpa told me that when
Yeah,
we were kids.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Grandma Ida used to put spaghetti in her pasta fagioli just because we loved it.
Oh, it was great.
Grandpa loved it. So it was really hard to eat it, but it was really good that way. So it's literally spaghetti and soup. So when I was probably 8 or 9, my grandma was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna have pasta fagioli." I'm like, "All right, cool." And I look at it and I'm like, I don't know how to eat the spaghetti in here. And Grandpa goes, "Whatever you do, don't cut it."
I still don't know how to eat spaghetti and pasta.
And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You can't cut it. My sister always swore it made it taste different. All you do is you get the spoon, you swirl a little bit of spaghetti on your fork, get the scoop of beans and broth in the other one, and just stick it right on top of there."
So are you eating it with a fork or a spoon?
Yes.
Both, yeah. Exactly.
That's what I always like, twirled the spaghetti with the fork. 'Cause
Put it in your
I'm
mouth
not-
and then eat a scoop of the.
I've never been able to do the twirling on a spoon. I've always just twirled it on the plate.
I can do it no matter what. Plate,
But-
spoon, air.
What I would do is I would eat the spaghetti and then set my fork down, take a spoon, eat some of the beans in the broth, and then keep switching back and forth between utensils.
Isn't it true that Italians don't twirl their macaroni though?
That's what they say.
Shove it in their mouth.
Well, no, they twirl it, but not with a spoon.
Oh, I can twirl it
There
any
was-
way that is necessary.
There was, I want to say it was Gay Talese, the writer, said that when he was a kid, and his family, I'm pretty sure they were Northern.
Is
weren't
that
they,
the
Dad?
spy guy?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. What spy guy?
You know, he did that book. Never mind. We'll talk about it later.
Oh, the Netflix thing. Yeah.
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 He wasn't the spy, was
No,
he?
no.
Okay.
Boyer or whatever it was called.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was weird.
It was very weird.
Anyways.
So Gay Talese, when he was growing up, like, first of all, his parents his dad was a tailor, so he always made him wear a suit, like, every day. Because he's like, you have to be the best dressed person here everywhere you go. So they, like, really hammered into him rules on, proper etiquette and stuff like that. And they always said it was classless to use a spoon with your fork to twirl. And then one day he was, like, still a kid, and he saw Joe DiMaggio eating at a restaurant, twirling with a spoon. He's like, well, I guess I'm not that classless.
Doesn't Joe DiMaggio dunk?
Yeah, he dunks. He dunks.
He dunks?
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
Remember that episode of Seinfeld?
Oh,
And
yeah.
he concentrates. I mean, you could just make all this noise and he doesn't even acknowledge it.
So not only does he twirl his spaghetti, but he dunks his donuts.
Yep.
All right, perfect.
Okay, one last fact about amatriciana. True amatriciana does not have onions or garlic. Some styles outside of Italy will do that, but, like, the Italians are very particular about their foods. We all know this. Like, there are rules that you don't mess with. Like, you don't put cheese on seafood and stuff like that. Like, you don't do some things. And that's one of the things. Like, if it's true amatriciana, like, they'll call you out for it if you put garlic or onions in it.
Well, the other thing, especially in this country where guanciale is not always readily available, pancetta is a perfectly acceptable substitute
Right.
for guanciale.
What's the difference? Isn't guanciale fattier?
It's the cheek.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
But I think it is.
So
I
it
think
probably
it
is fattier,
Yeah, I
right?
think it is.
fattier and it's a little bit stronger flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's the pancetta? What part of the?
The pancetta is the belly.
That's belly,
Pancetta
yeah.
is bacon.
Yeah.
Basically, pancetta is
Unsmoked but cured.
unsmoked, salt-cured bacon
Yeah.
with like a whole bunch of different things in it. Like this is one of the exceptions that where more than one seasoning is okay, but we don't use much of anything. I mean, we have like I think a little bit of bay leaf in it. We have some juniper berries, salt, black pepper, and a couple. I can't remember what I use a recipe for that of all things, but I do have to confess because I don't do it very often. I use a recipe.
Dad,
But
I'll
it's-
never
but
forget.
it's good.
I mean, you have a recipe for a few things, like your sopressata. You have a recipe for.
Yeah,
At the old house, the house we had up in Zili, you had it written on the wall.
yeah.
I got recipes written on the wall.
Yeah, the dough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which you had to explain because somehow they were all missing the salt every time. A couple people here would
Well, I
miss
wrote
the salt,
salt on the mixer in Sharpie.
so people can't forget the
large
salt.
Sharpie.
Yes,
Goddamn Wonder Bread Italians, I think they
No, it's
work
Eric.
at the Olive Garden.
it was Eric.
Huh?
It was Eric that forgot the salt.
Oh,
He's Irish.
A Wonder Bread Irish. Thinks he's at the Olive Garden.
Getting back to your pancetta, when the Penn Mac guys dropped my order off the other day, they were like, "Oh, you're making bacon." I was like, "No, it's pancetta." I was like, "You want to try it?" And they were like, "Yeah." And they ate it, and they were like, "This is the best bacon I ever had." And they were like, I was like, "Yeah, my dad made it." And they were like, "He did? Tell him it's so good." And I forgot to tell you, so I'm telling you on the podcast.
You're
Well,
telling
tell him
you now.
thank you.
I was cooking
Tell him
it for
thank
the carbonara. So you guys out there, just be careful when you watch the podcast. It's not necessarily going to come out the same week that we record it. So don't come in here and say, "I heard on the podcast you have carbonara," because if you come next week, I don't fucking have carbonara next week.
Well, here's the thing, too. It's Friday morning. It is
Friday, September 9th, 2022. It is 10:05 a.m.
Yes.
And we have carbonara for the rest of today and the rest of tomorrow. And veal chops. Come eat the fucking veal chops.
You just told them we are not
I
gonna have
know.
those
You know what? I'm
specials.
just going to do the veal chop next week, too, then. Fuck it.
Okay.
Yeah, but this isn't going to come out for 2 weeks.
Well, shit. Then everything I just said is bullshit. Thank you.
You know what? Maybe when the podcast comes out, maybe she'll do veal chop the week after. How's that sound?
Or just call us and ask us what our specials
all
are.
right.
Or go on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay,
Yeah, because we post
that
them there
works.
every week.
Yeah.
All right.
That was my rant for the day.
We did talk about Ragu alla Bolognese a little bit last week. You know, it's we talked about the origin of the word ragu, where it was traditionally a French word for like a meat stew. But in this case, like ragu became the definition became red sauce once the introduction of tomatoes again. A red sauce with meat cooked like slow over many hours, and Beth was making fun of me for saying many hours instead of several hours. But you were just mocking me for it
When?
in the podcast. You're like, many hours, many.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, it does sound like you. Anyway, it's slow cooked on low heat for several hours, and in Bolognese, the traditional one, they do a lot of things. They do like chopped carrots, celery, onions. That's called a sofrito, where you put all those together, saute them, and then add the meat to saute and whatever. The first mention, I think I might have brought this up, of macaroni alla Bolognese was in 1891 in La Scienza in Cucina, l'arte di mangiar bene. It's the science in the kitchen and the art of eating well. This recipe was originally missing the tomatoes, but later recipes started to add it around like 1910. My question here, I was thinking about this while I just finished this great book called Red Sauce: How Italian food became American food, or something like that. In it, I was wondering, that he talks about Bolognese and he talks a little bit about lasagna. Our lasagna sauce is the only thing we make that has like ground beef in it. Is Bolognese like the originator of that? What do you think?
It probably is. It's hard to say, but it probably is.
Because that's the only thing we use a ground beef sauce for.
Now, have you seen any Calabrese recipes for lasagna from the old country?
I've seen, not in detail with the sauce. I know it's a red sauce, but I haven't seen anything like the details what exactly goes in it. I'm wondering if that's more an American thing too. Like we had said, Americans had more, or Italians when they came to America had more resources, more money than they did in the old country, so that meat was more readily available. I think maybe that was them stretching the sauce. I don't know for sure, but we'll talk a little bit about lasagna in a minute because I want to talk about Al Fornos. But
my gut feeling is it was more of an Al Forno dish without meat back then, because the Southern Italians, they were poor people. They didn't put meat in much, and that's why the eggs in our baked macaroni, because it was a cheap source of
that segues into what I wanted to talk about.
A cheap source of protein.
The Al Forno is the next topic I wanted to say. There are many different possible origins of a baked pasta or a baked macaroni in Italy. In the northern, the northern roots are in the Renaissance, but theirs is different, and it's typically served like it's lasagna. So lasagna noodles. Dad, I know you hate the word noodles, but I don't know how else to say it.
No, I know. I'll let you know this time.
The idea of the lasagna noodles, the thin, flat, like thick noodles, actually goes back as far as at least the Romans and possibly the Greeks. And the Romans had a dish called lasagna, which was pretty similar, and so that might be the origin of that. But the idea of lasagna is very complicated because there's the lasagna noodles and then there's lasagna the dish, which is the baked dish. And I learned, because I've seen it spelled both ways, lasagna with an A or lasagne with an E. The plural is actually more popular in northern Italy. And that is the way the British say their lasagna. They spell it with an E because they're more influenced by the northern ones. The Southerners always use the singular lasagna with an A. E is plural and A is singular. The Southerners brought that with them to America. So in America, you'll see lasagna with an A. Again, back to the northern Italian roots of lasagna. The one in the Renaissance actually was typically served either with a bechamel sauce instead of tomato sauce, or both together. And I know that sounds crazy.
Northerners, they're a bunch of goddamn French.
I know. Well,
Germans.
No, well, but depending on where north.
Okay.
But with a bechamel, that's a French.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Northeast is French, northwest is German.
Well, they think that actually the bechamel being replaced by ricotta is the Italian American way of even doing that.
Okay. And again, if you're French, I don't have any problem with French. I'm just being, the stereotypical old Dago that didn't like anybody but people from his own province.
We always say this is your persona. You just like to bitch about what people do to Italian food.
You know what? I'll tell you what. The funny thing is, I think, is that this is me without the filter.
Yes.
And those of you who know me well know I don't have much of a damn filter anyway. But this, I even take the rest of the
your filters
off.
are here and here.
So don't get offended by what I say because I'm just an old asshole Dago. It's just the way I am.
So back to the origins. Okay, the southern Italians or Sicilians would use red sauce. They wouldn't use bechamel. There are different dishes like timpano, timbalo, however you want to say it. The baked dish that may or may not have like a pastry crust to it, like seen in the movie Big Night, where they make that. I still want to make that timpano.
Yeah.
Where they put in like a pastry crust
we'll make it someday.
Bake it, and then it's like a big drum. I want to try that so badly.
I'll tell you what, she's talking about the movie called Big Night, which is probably one of the two best films ever in the world on Italian culture.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Except for the classic Godfather and Goodfellas and those. But this is typical Italian culture. Stanley Tucci's in it.
And so is the guy that played Monk. What's his name?
Yeah.
Adrian...
No, Tony Shalhoub.
Oh, yeah.
Who's Lebanese, but you know what? We're all the damn same. No matter what we say, we're all the damn same. We're Mediterranean.
There's a scene where Tony Shalhoub is talking about, and this when I first saw it, I saw this movie when I was in my Italian studies classes. And I came home and I said, Dad, we need to watch this movie together because this is amazing. But there's this scene where he's talking to somebody and he says, after you eat this dish, you have to kill yourself because nothing is ever going to be better than this. You're never going to experience anything better in life than this. And I cracked up laughing because Dad used to say that all the time.
That's what I told my stepson, or my son Dan, when he got his first year. It was like a 12-point. And I just looked at him and said, you're going to have to kill yourself. You'll never match it. And
we don't think suicide's funny, by the way.
No. But this is.
And I told Ronald Ramon that about his shot against West Virginia, too. And he didn't know me. I mean, this is the first time.
No, we all know your sense of humor. We understand that you're full of shit.
I was some kind of a nut.
Because you are.
Which I was.
To the average person, Dad, you are.
But that was some shot. I mean, you know what? I don't care who you are. You're never going to match that. So I have to defend myself. I was right.
We love Ronald Ramon.
I mean, I was a little bit over the edge, like I tend to be sometimes, but I was right.
All right, so back to the Al Forno dishes. And we'll start talking again about lasagna. The lasagna di Carnevale is a Neapolitan dish. This is, I think, where we get the idea for.
Come on, Napolitan.
What would she say?
Neapolitan.
Oh, fuck that.
Or Knobbly Dobbly.
Knobbly Dobbly.
Where's Anna? Knobbly Dobbly. She's not here yet.
So, I thought we were Knobbly Dobbly or whatever.
The lasagna di Carnevale is layered with sausage, hard-boiled eggs, fried meatballs, mozzarella and ricotta, and I believe it has sauce in it later. But that I think is the origin of the Southern Italian idea of baked pasta with hard-boiled eggs in it. And actually, when I looked up pasta al forno on the internet, I went to Wikipedia just to see what it said. I always follow those sources because I was also an English major. I don't just trust what Wikipedia says because anyone can type anything into that. But the picture on the pasta al forno page on Wikipedia was a dish from Catanzaro, which is 20 minutes, well, it's the province, but it's also the town of Catanzaro, 20 minutes from our family's hometown. And the photo was this Calabrese dish. It had penne, it had red sauce, it had sopressata, it had provolone, hard-boiled eggs, and fried meatballs.
Super sod.
Super sod.
Homemade. We made this. It's awesome.
Wait, remember when we were in the Bronx, we went to Zero Lato Nove?
Yeah.
Their Al Forno had prosciutto in it, didn't it?
It did.
It also had hard-boiled eggs in it.
Well, and that's the thing. Every once in a while, we'll get people come in here and they're like, "I can't believe you do the hard-boiled eggs. Like that's amazing. My family did that." It's rare. Most people are like, "Why the hell are you putting hard-boiled eggs into the baked macaroni?" I'm like, "Listen, just trust me. It's frickin' phenomenal."
It's crazy too because we always say that I think you mentioned it on the last podcast. We have the sign out front that says it's a intersection of Mulberry Street and Arthur Avenue.
Yeah.
And we always say that if you were at the intersection of those two places, you'd find us. And just like anytime we go to New York, that's outside of Italy, the only place besides here, this building right here, where you can actually get authentic Italian food that is like you get in the old country. And every time we go there, I swear we find a different similarity that we have with something up there.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to remember exactly what they had in that, but I think they had prosciutto instead of pepperoni, which is what we put in it.
Or instead of sopressata, which is what the Calabrese did.
Right. And then the hard-boiled eggs.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of our family, we talked about this, do meatballs, right?
Some of the
Mancusos, or was it sausage?
No, we were talking about provolone.
Oh, I know, but I mean...
I don't know about the meatballs and sausage.
Talking about the... Oh, yeah.
I don't remember that discussion.
Some of our Mancuso relatives put meatballs in there.
I put meatballs in my baked ziti.
Yeah, okay.
And
little
sausage.
guys, right? Little guys? Yeah.
Like little wedding soup meatballs. It's fucking
Well,
delicious.
and that was another thing that when I was reading this red sauce book that I found interesting was saying, we have a discussion in our family whether the original recipe for baked macaroni had provolone or Swiss. And we know it's Swiss, but some of the cousins, they're like, "Oh, yeah, we had this discussion,
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, you're right, because you're on our side." But, the thing I was reading in this book is, when Italians were coming over here and throughout the, 20th century, the availability of some of the goods they would get, some of the imported stuff was expensive or not as readily available. So they found American, I don't want to say shortcuts, but they're shortcuts.
Well, I mean, American substitutions.
Substitutions is a better word, yes.
And some of them are not very good. Others are very good.
Well, it's like there's a big part of this book where they talk about, in Italy, when you have mozzarella, it's going to be mozzarella di bufala.
Yeah.
It's going to be from buffalo milk, not cow's milk. Here, we don't really have that because we don't really have buffalo here.
Yeah. And I mean, we like to talk about how our baked macaroni goes all the way back to Calabria, and it basically does.
They served us something almost identical when we were there.
But talking to the Swiss cheese, and I remember...
You were talking to the Swiss cheese?
Talking of the Swiss cheese. Isn't that what I said?
I think you said talking to the Swiss cheese.
Well, if you're Swiss cheese, I'm talking to you, son of a bitch. But anyway, I can remember being at a Mancuso reunion. That's my grandmother's side of the family. Probably in the mid-'90s when my dad was still around. And he was talking to one of the Russos. And I can't remember which Russo, but it was one of the Russos. And they were talking because Aunt Jenny, who made the latest iteration of baked macaroni. You don't know what iteration is, but that's...
I actually do. I know that one.
Good.
Like, it's like a version, right?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
But anyway, the iteration that we use, she used Swiss cheese, and they were talking about why, of all things, she would use Swiss cheese. Well, the Mancusos, they grew up in Waynesburg, which is 60 miles south of here. It's actually... it's West Virginia.
It's a little too close to West Virginia for me. That's what I was going to say.
It's Pennsylvania, but it's West Virginia. But anyway, they were speculating. They didn't know for sure that maybe she couldn't get mozzarella or provolone, and she just substituted Swiss cheese because that's what was readily available in the grocery store in Waynesburg. That makes a lot of sense to me. As it turns out, that was a really good cheese for her to pick.
It works really well.
It really does. I mean, people think classically that's probably not an Italian cheese.
No.
But, you know what? Classically, really, what is Italian? I mean, macaroni's not Italian originally.
No.
So,
neither are tomatoes.
and that's the key to being a great cook is to steal from other people.
Well, that's the thing with the idea of authenticity.
Yeah, and put our own little things in there that work.
The idea of authenticity. I mean, like what is authentic?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it has to start somewhere. It has to start somewhere, and then it's going to develop. It's going to change over time.
Yeah. And we like to say here that we're authentic, but I think...
we have some Italian-American things here.
No,
we
you know what? I think we're as authentic as you get
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not 100%, but we're authentic as you can get in America.
Well, doesn't that lead into your... everybody thinks... I read this yesterday, so I'm just trying to... Yeah. The meatball thing.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks meatballs are Italian-American, but
they're in the macaroni.
The Italian version is technically polpette, right?
Polpette or polpettone, depending on the size. Like polpette are little guys.
Now,
polpettone is like a bigger meatball, but
isn't polpettone though did Larry just make it bigger
in a log?
Yeah, it was almost like an Italian meatloaf.
Was that Larry's or was that Johnny's?
No, it was Larry's.
It was Larry's, yeah.
Johnny made it, but it was Larry's.
Yeah.
Oh, that shit is good.
We haven't had that in a while.
Yeah,
I mean, but the thing is, the idea of like polpette or polpettone, it was in Italy. It's served as a main course. Like it's not, you don't see typically spaghetti and meatballs except for like I was saying, this Calabrese al forno that had fried meatballs in it. Like that's a southern thing. But when I was studying in Rome, I had a Roman roommate. Her name was Alessia. She was 2 years older than me. I made the family sauce. I made the grandma's sauce for dinner one day. And she was like marveled by the idea that we put like a roast in our sauce and then put it like all together on the table. And she's like, we don't do that here. We don't combine, meat and spaghetti. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I don't know if that's an Italian American thing or what. I'm realizing, there is some part to it that's Southern, but that's a foreign concept depending on where you go. And that goes back to the authenticity thing. Like that might not be authentically Roman, but it could be authentically Calabrese.
Was there meat in the sauce in Calabria? I can't remember.
Well, that's another thing.
I think we talked about that last time.
More recently, I think so. Yes, like we said like pork or sausage or whatever pieces were left over from when they slaughtered basically pigs because cows were not something they had a lot of access to, and that was the other thing too. They weren't going to slaughter a cow for veal over there because they need it for the milk.
Papa Joe slaughtered a cow for veal here once.
Carlo.
Yes, he did.
Carlo. Go on, Papa Joe. Tell that one.
All right. So I used to go when we lived up in Zeli and Opal. I used to go up to Saxonburg and get like a half a calf. They sell me from time to time. And so I'm talking about this at work one day, and this one woman says, "Well, you should go to the Indiana, Pennsylvania cattle auction." And you could get a calf. I thought, yeah, that sounds like fun. So like an idiot, I went there with my pickup truck, okay? And this calf, I tied it into the back of my pickup truck.
How much did you pay for it? Do you remember? Did you have to bid on it?
Yeah, I had a bid on it. I mean, it was probably $150 for the whole calf.
And how much were you spending when you were buying it already?
I probably spent $300, but there was a lot more meat. So, I mean, in the end, I didn't save any money doing this. So anyway, I tied the thing down, and I learned later if you use a dog kennel and put a cover on it, the calf will stay pretty calm. But the calf wouldn't stay still.
Or in the truck.
Or in the truck, yeah. But anyway,
Then you're just asking for it to shit in your back seat, though.
But that's okay. But anyway, I didn't go 5 feet, and the calf jumped out. It was still tied to the truck, but it jumped out. So I had to get out. And I tied it in tighter. went another 5 feet and jumped out again. Well, luckily I'm fucking brilliant and I'm prepared for anything. Okay, so I go out. I put the calf back in the truck. I took out my 9mm Beretta and shot it in the back of the head, and drove home and slaughtered it.
But not before telling it.
Not before telling him that you have to answer for Sonny. So the calf was
Carlo.
eternally named Carlo.
And then you took it to my brother's house.
Yeah, and they took it up to Luke's, and we slaughtered it, and it was good.
He wanted Luke to kill it in the first place, but
Yeah,
didn't get that far.
No,
Yeah.
didn't make it that far.
Hey, you do what you got to do.
But we've only done that once, and there's a reason for it.
Yeah, so now we get it from the Strip District meat. So
I'm pretty sure you got the wrong kind of cow too, didn't you?
I think it was a milking cow.
I got a milking cow, but it still tasted good.
Yeah, it was not fatty enough though. Was it? Or was it?
No, it was good. It was real. The meat was really good. I mean, there was no doubt about it. The meat was really good. It wasn't the right kind of calf, but the meat was really
Let this be a lesson to you. Like he said, just go see Ray at Strip District Meats. Tell him we sent you so that you don't have to kill your own cow.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then,
He'll do it for you.
and the only problem is whatever you do, if Ray gives you some of his veal, don't shoot it with a 9mm
No,
Beretta.
and-
He probably wouldn't look kindly on that.
And don't cook your veal chops too long.
Yeah.
What do you temp them at, Beth?
You got to take them out at 130. They get to 135 and they're falling off.
There you go.
You people out there are probably like, that's disgusting.
All right, so back to the meatball thing. I do believe this is, an Italian origin for it, not meatballs in general, because every culture has some type of meatball. You know what I mean? Like the Swedish have meatballs, the Germans have something similar, the French have something. Every culture has a ball of meat that is held together like that. And
Swedish
served
meatballs at IKEA.
at IKEA. Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's probably why I know about Swedish meatballs, because I love IKEA.
I hate IKEA.
I know.
But their Swedish meatballs are pretty
Don't
good.
fucking get me started on IKEA.
They're not
We'll be
real-
here till Tuesday.
They're not real meatballs, but they're good.
Well,
We'll
not
be
by
here
the
till Tuesday
Italian
and I'll
sense.
miss Pitt beating Tennessee tomorrow. We can't talk about IKEA. I fucking hate IKEA.
All right. So, well, anyway,
Now, for you Goombas from North Jersey, South Jersey, Philadelphia, IKEA actually has meatballs with real gravy on it.
Oh, yeah. Wait, do they really?
Oh,
Gravy,
it's
yeah.
brown gravy. It's brown gravy.
that's what Swedish
meatballs are.
Yeah,
I think it's meatballs with onions and brown gravy. I think.
I think
It sounds
is.
like, no offense to the Swedish, it sounds like I don't like your meatballs and I also fucking hate your store.
But
Okay.
you're a little bit Swedish,
I don't care. Their store sucks.
All right.
You can't find anything in that place.
Probably 1/16, but you're a little bit Swedish.
Katie lost her fucking purse in IKEA one time.
Yeah, I left
That was
it on a
like
bunk
that was
bed.
like a nightmare.
I left it on the top bunk of a bunk bed.
So then the next time, her and our sister-in-law Katie dropped me and Tony off at the bar because they didn't want to listen to us bitch the whole way through IKEA.
Yeah. So
And
we
then-
went. Yeah.
And then we were talking to the bartender about Mike Ditka for 3 hours.
Well, it was Mike Dicta's restaurant.
Yeah, and they got back and we were trashed.
Yep.
Anyway,
And everybody at the bar knew our whole story.
oh yeah, they were like, "How was IKEA?" We were best friends with
Hey,
everybody.
Katie. Hey, Katie. How was IKEA?
Anyway, back
Yeah.
to the meatballs.
Anyway.
Anyway, look at this. A fig from our tree. It's a little bit small. It's good.
This is what, the third or fourth year we've been growing that tree?
I think it's the third year.
They keep getting
Yeah.
bigger though.
Yeah.
They do keep getting bigger.
Stuff some goat cheese in these and put
Oh man.
Mike's hot honey on top of them.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit!
Yep. But anyway,
Fucking
back to the
ridiculous.
meatballs thing. Like, everyone thinks, spaghetti with meatballs is a purely Italian-American thing. But, I mean, there are roots to it in Italy. I mean, like I said, I'll say this for, the third or fourth time, that Calabrese al forno has fried meatballs in it these days.
Yeah.
The other thing is, Parmigiana. And that's something, I do believe that is more Italian American than anything else, because again, when the immigrants came here, they now had a higher standard of living and the access to, chicken cutlets, veal cutlets. I do believe that Parmigiana, like eggplant Parmigiana, was a thing in Italy.
Okay.
But that was because they had eggplant.
Yeah.
They could grow that. I mean, it wasn't like slaughtering an animal for it. If you have chickens or a cow, you're probably not going to slaughter them because you're going to want the eggs from the chicken, the milk from the cow. But that in itself is, Beth makes Parmigiana all the time, and it is freaking phenomenal.
Now, for some of you Americans, you got to differentiate between Parmigiana and Parmigiano.
Right.
You go ahead.
Parmigiano Reggiano is the cheese, and that's a protected thing in Italy. Like, it can only be called Parmigiano Reggiano if it's from, only so many. I think it's 1,000 factories in this one area of Parma.
Yeah.
Parma. Yeah. That said, Parmesan is a different thing. First of all, it drives me nuts when people ask for Parmesan, or I see that because I'm pretty damn sure it's a traditionally an Italian thing, but it's been bastardized.
Yeah, that's a French.
It's a French word, and then you have Kraft Parmesan, which is just crap. I think it's mostly filler anyway. It's not even real cheese.
Yeah.
So it's veal Parmigiana?
Parmigiana with an A.
Parmigiana.
Yeah. Parmigiana means basically breaded and fried meat or
in the Parma style.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna piss somebody off real quick if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
He will probably never listen to this podcast, and I fucking hope he doesn't. There's a point to this. So our nephew Jake was here cooking a couple weeks ago. He's 13.
13.
And we had veal Parmigiana as a special, and he made me the best piece of veal I think I've ever had in my life, because he was in there and
a 13-year-old.
Aunt Beth, can I help you cook? I'm like, yeah, sure. So he's in here dropping zucchini for me. He's in here cooking veal, all this shit. So he's like, Aunt Beth, what do you want for lunch? And I'm like, I picked out the perfect piece of veal. And this isn't who I don't want to listen to the podcast. We'll get there. I would love for my nephew Jake to listen to the podcast, and he will. So Jake was like, all right, I want to make you lunch. I'm going to make you your perfect piece of veal. So he brings it out with a huge bed of spaghetti. And this was the most fucking tender piece of veal I ever had in my life. It was fantastic.
And a 13-year-old made it for you.
So props to Jake. Great job. I taught you well.
Was this before or after he won $150 doing rock, paper, scissors on the school bus?
He won $150 playing rock, paper, scissors on the school bus 2 days ago. His dad texted me and said I'm making him give it back. That's my nephew. I'm a bookie. I'm kind of rubbing off on him probably in the wrong way.
A little bit.
Here's who I want to piss off.
And the funny thing is, he's the whitest of white kids that you never want to see.
Well, his family's all German.
Yeah,
He's mom's.
Yeah, he's my
Mom's
wife's grandson. I mean, I call him my grandson, obviously, but
He is your grandson.
He's mom's son's
pretty much
kid.
German.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's very
Well, you got German grandkids. Sorry.
But goes to show you white kids can win.
White kids can cook
if they're taught by the right person,
and they can cook. Okay.
So here's who I want to piss off. Fuck. Hold on. I have to collect myself. Fucking Jeff Snyder, who has a problem with kids working in our restaurant. If you have a fucking problem with it, go open your own fucking restaurant, okay? If you ever listen to this, fuck you. I feel like Steve Sharippa right now. Steve Sharippa motherfucks the world. Beth Tellerico motherfucks Jeff Snyder. Right. I don't care. Anyway,
can I have some more wine? I feel like I need more wine.
Our nieces and nephews come in here and they work their asses off. We don't make them do a goddamn thing.
No, they want to.
They want to work. And Jake wanted to come in here and cook. I have a feeling Jeff Snyder would be on the floor if he saw that my 13-year-old nephew could cook better than him. His last name's Snyder. Anyway, nothing wrong with people with the name Snyder except for him.
And he won't be back. Believe me, he won't be back. I took care of that.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Anyway,
we won't get into that.
We'll get into depth maybe some other time if we feel like it. Yeah. But my nephew Jake makes a mean piece of veal. Anyway, go back to your Parmigiana.
Well, I think we've pretty much wrapped it up. The only thing, it's veal in the Parmesan style, which is why you throw mozzarella on it instead of, Parmigiano. But those two things, they sound confusing because it's difference of a vowel on the end of a word. But yeah, I mean, that ultimately, red sauce is the glue holding Italian food together, and it's a damn good thing.
Is that all you have?
That's all I have.
You know what, we said we were going to talk a little bit about, and this is stretching the red sauce a little bit, about sausage with tomatoes and peppers.
We got about 10 minutes, so that's perfect.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, our family makes this dish that people love here. We've changed it a little bit, but not much. It's Ernie Ritchie's sausage, which, as we told you before, and we'll tell you many, many times again, is the absolute best sausage in the world. And we make it with fried peppers and tomatoes. And people come in all the time and say, these are the best tomatoes, sausage and peppers I've ever had. Well, there's something we do different than probably almost anybody else that I've ever seen. Our family never put onions in it. And I've had sausage and peppers with tomatoes and onions, and it's pretty good. My own personal feeling is that I'm not crazy about. I think you can have too many different kinds of flavors, and I think that's why ours is so good, because we leave the onions out, and it's just it's a little bit simpler.
Onion is a very strong flavor.
It is a very strong flavor, and I think, and so are peppers.
Yeah, but
they're very different flavors, and I know a lot of people like them together, and it's kind of like the garlic and the sauce. People say, "Do you have sausage and peppers without onions?" They say, "You don't put garlic in your sauce?" Yeah, that's why it's so fucking good.
We also have sausage and peppers without garlic.
Yeah, and over the years I've come to the conclusion that, even anymore when I have a cheesesteak, I just have onions and not peppers, because I think that
it's too much together.
It's too much.
Will Pat's put peppers on your cheesesteak?
I don't know if they will, but a lot of places will.
Oh, Pat's is our favorite.
Yeah.
One cheesesteak wit.
Yep. With cheese whiz.
With the whiz.
With the whiz.
I'm the whiz.
And anyway, actually, the sausage is something that my family did not used to add. We used to just do, it was a vegetarian dish. It was tomatoes and peppers. And actually, to be honest with you, I like it just as well that way, just the tomatoes and peppers, as I do with the sausage, even though the sausage is awesome.
That goes back to the simplicity of Italian food.
Yeah, it's a little bit different of a dish. But
my tomatoes in my garden at home, my Roma tomatoes are coming in now, and I'm getting probably a dozen a week, and I'm just slicing them up, I'm salting them, and I am throwing Romano cheese on them, and they are delicious.
I eat tomatoes like apples.
I do too.
I lick it.
Salt it. Grandpa told me that once, that he used to do that too. He used to go into his grandparents' garden in Waynesburg, and he would grab a tomato off the vine. He'd take a salt shaker with him out into the yard, lick it, salt it, take a bite.
That's what I'm doing Tuesday. I got that huge fucking beef steak that's going to be red by Tuesday.
That beef steak is massive, and it's still green.
I'm having that for breakfast. It's huge.
Oh, you know what? But I think that we missed one thing in the whole red sauce thing.
Uh-oh.
And no, not a problem. And I think that
I'm interested to see where this is going.
If you go into Italy and you have macaroni spaghetti with red sauce, you'll find that you don't have a big pile of sauce on top of your macaroni. The Americans, what they do is they just take the macaroni, they throw it on the dish white, and then they drown it with sauce, and it's too much. It's ridiculous, and you don't mix it in. And this is where I think a lot of the controversy about your macaroni, whether you rinse it or not.
Yeah.
Because the Americans, a lot of people, even a lot of Italians, will say you don't rinse your sauce because it makes the sauce stick to it better.
Your macaroni, yeah.
But the Italians, they don't really care if their sauce sticks to their macaroni because there's not much there.
That, and they're putting it together and like sautéing it or whatever.
Yeah, and they toss it.
They toss it.
And there's really just barely enough sauce to cover the macaroni to make it pink instead of white.
Beth, have you ever heard when people say, your macaroni's done when you throw it against the wall and it sticks?
Yes.
Dad has never heard that before.
Yeah, that's weird.
Before last week.
That's stupid. That's ridiculous.
Well, it probably is, but I can't believe you've never heard that.
That is insane to me. That's like, I was reading
You're like 3 times my age.
Yeah, but I'm also...
Not quite.
I'm also closer to Italian American than you are.
Well,
less American influence, so...
Well, now hold on. So, you guys titled me this, so I'm gonna tie it in now.
Your gangster movie aficionado.
Well, it's The Sopranos. Ah. Remember the episode where Ralphie's trying to teach Jackie how to cook?
Yeah. Jackie Jr.
I think he put butter in his sauce, which we don't.
Well, I'm just guessing that Joey Pants is more northern because he is blonde.
So you think that just because Joey Pants is northern, they made Ralphie put butter in his sauce?
I'm thinking the butter is a more northern thing.
It is, yeah.
Well, it is, but anyway, because Avellino's in the South.
Avellino is in the South, yes.
That's where Tony's from.
Yeah, did he put butter in his sauce?
I don't know. I don't think so. But
Carmela might have, though, because her family was northern, because that was something that weren't they?
No, they were northern wannabes. Remember?
North-
She picked
that's
her
it.
mother out?
I mean,
That's
Avellino's got to be outside Naples, right?
Yeah, it's
Because
very knobbly,
he's
yeah.
knobbly dobbly or whatever.
Knobbly dobbly, yeah.
So Ralphie's cooking, and he takes it off, and I can't remember if he rinsed it or not, but he put the sauce right into the pan like
Look
we
at that
did.
cup of coal. Is it beautiful or what? That's ours too.
He puts the sauce right into the pot like Grandma used to do.
Yeah,
So it was Grandma would strain her macaroni.
yeah.
She would rinse it with hot water to
Yep.
keep it hot, and then she would throw it back in the pan that she cooked it in, and then dump sauce in it and mix it all together. Because
On the stove.
when
yeah.
you do that, and we do something very similar here. Now we have to make random orders at random times of the day, so it's a little different here. But what Grandma would do is she would mix the sauce in while it was still hot, and then that gives the macaroni a chance to absorb the sauce, so you don't need as much.
Right.
And then here, what I do is I do the same thing, but in a frying pan. So we get the macaroni out of the pot, super hot, throw it into the sauce that's already in a frying pan,
Already hot.
and we don't like fry the macaroni, which fried macaroni is delicious, but we'll get to that in a different time. But we just throw the sauce in the frying pan, heat that up, turn it way down,
Toss it.
throw the macaroni in, toss it, and then put it right on the plate.
Even the Irish redneck's pretty good at tossing.
Yeah, he is pretty good at it. He's better than Katie. Katie always asks me to do it for her.
Better than me.
What do I
Yeah.
ask you to do for me?
Toss the macaroni.
Oh yeah, because I can't flip a cast iron.
Yeah, she can't
I
stand
can
it.
I can flip the non-stick ones, but the cast iron always sticks, and I always get it all over.
It's
the floor.
weird. Some days the sauce is like, I don't know if it's when it's a little more like runny or watery or whatever. Some days I can't flip that thing without getting it all over the fucking
That
place.
is me all the time.
Some days it just lands perfectly.
But I'm an accident prone person, so if something's gonna go wrong, I'm probably gonna do it. Like I don't know why this just came to my head, but there was one time Dad taught me how to change the oil in my RAV4. I dropped a wrench on my forehead while I was doing it.
I've thrown golf balls up in the air and caught them on my own forehead
That's
before.
because you were bored.
Oh.
You got bored golfing because no one should do more than 9 holes. I'm telling you, it's
Well, now that I'm old enough to drink.
well, yeah. Anyway,
Plus 9.
I think that's pretty much all we have.
That
Dad, you
does
have
it.
anything? All right.
So this is Papa Joe with Katie and Beth, and we're signing off. Anything else?
What's our next episode about?
Macaroni, is it?
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little bit about macaroni.
Not only macaroni, but we're gonna expand it into risotto and polenta,
Okay.
which are not, classic Southern Italian, but they're pretty fucking.
Maybe
good.
that's when we should have the 2%er on.
Yeah,
Joe Avi.
Yeah, maybe.
or Justin.
Or
Saint
both of them.
ravioli.
Both of them.
Yeah.
They can share a microphone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Our friend Justin makes fantastic ravioli over in Bloomfield. Go check him out. Saint ravioli.
especially for a German.
Yeah. His friends found out he was only 2% Italian. So they call him the 2%er. Was it him or his brother?
No, it was him.
Okay. Anyway,
He did one of those DNA
We'll
tests
see
that
if-
came back 1% or 2% Italian or whatever.
I think that Justin would be a great person to have on the macaroni episode because
I agree.
we growing up we traditionally would make macaroni on the day after Christmas we did.
When we make fresh macaroni,
We'd start in the morning and make ravioli for about 8 hours, and it would take us way longer than it should have because we would forget what we did last year.
Yep.
Maybe we should take a page out of the Dulesky book and start a journal.
Yeah, maybe.
We did with our sister-in-law's family. We did sauce the other day. They do cut up all the tomatoes and juice them and all that stuff, and they have a journal that they write tips from last year in, so that they don't forget what worked. And cut the tomatoes smaller next year. Clean the screen with this. Blah blah blah. And it's kind of turned into who fucked up the biggest and who said the dumbest thing. So it's funny to read it, but we should probably take that into account next time we make ravioli.
We really should.
We get halfway through it and we're like, oh, we remember this from last year now. And it's like, you just wasted fucking 4 hours making shit.
Yeah.
And now it's good and now we're tired. So anyway, Justin makes fantastic ravioli. So I'm gonna shoot him a text and see if we can't get him on here for the next one.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do that.
All right, guys.
He's gonna be our first guest.
I know, that's
Wow.
exciting.
He should feel honored. Or we should. One of the two.
I don't know if he will.
Anyway, I think that's all we got to say, right?
Yeah.
That's it. We're
All
done.
right, guys, thank you for
Thank
listening. Follow us on all of our social media accounts if you don't already.
I don't know if you can hit the subscribe button yet, but we'll keep you posted.
Yeah. All right.
And Hail to Pitt beat Tennessee.